Well, ABC personality Yumi Steins has come under fire for a book she co-authored about sex aimed at children as young as 8. The book, entitled Welcome to Sex, describes in graphic detail things like oral sex, anal sex, masturbation and gender fluidity, and those are some of the more mild subjects. Now, the book was published in May, but has come to public attention in the last couple of days thanks to a podcaster who described how it was being sold at major retailers such as Big W. Have a look.
Welcome to Sex, a book sold at Big W and marketed towards your children. And it says so on the very first page. The lowdown on anal sex, oral sex, the virginity myth. And as it says there, I think virginity is such an outdated concept, downplaying virginity, porn, and of course, sexual and gender identities. They couldn't leave that one out. I'm 13 and I'm confused about my sexuality.
Now, like I said, those are some of the more mild subjects covered in the book. It would be entirely inappropriate for us to read on air the content of this book, which, as I said, is aimed at children aged 8, 9, 10 years of age. Prior to the book's release, the author, Yumi Steins, had this to say about her rationale behind the book.
Alternative to sex education for kids is porn.
Yeah.
There's really not much else. If we're not giving them the information and having the conversations, they're going to look for it, and what they're going to find is porn. And a lot of porn is very bad. And I know that a lot of people who want to be woke and want to be open-minded are like, porn's okay, whatever, don't yuck my yum. But a lot of porn that is considered mainstream or pretty, straightforward is quite abusive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of practices in there that I wouldn't want done to my body. The way that they're being touched isn't very skillful or considerate or really thinking about feminine pleasure, and it's just kind of rough and yuck.
Yeah.
So if that's their only information that's borderline abuse or actual abuse, I would rather that they have a safe conversation with mum.
Any mum who is discussing with their child the sort of things that Steins has written about, in my view, should be reported to the Department of Community Services. As for her claim that parents have got a choice between sex education or porn, that's a false dichotomy if ever I've heard one, but it does explain why Steins' book, Sex Education, is more akin to porn. Big W have stocked this book, which makes you wonder who vets the material that they put on sale. They've since announced they're withdrawing it from stores, but it will still be available online. In a statement, Big W said, "We'll continue to sell the parenting book, Welcome to Sex, as part of our parenting range. We know there's been a wide range of views about the book. However, it's disappointing there's been multiple incidents of abuse directed at our store team members in the past 24 hours. To keep our team and customers safe, the book will be available to customers online only from later today." Notice that Big W did not remove it from stores because they thought anal sex is an inappropriate subject for 8-year-olds. They withdrew it from stores because they couldn't be bothered dealing with the angst from parents. Liz, this is pretty outrageous. And as a parent, we've talked about the fact that we feel like our kids are being sexualised, and then we're told, no, they're not being sexualised. That drag queen prancing naked in front of your child, they're teaching literacy and a love for reading. And so we politely say, oh, okay, we didn't want to offend. And all that's done is embolden those who clearly want to sexualise our children. We end up with rubbish like this.
Absolutely. If you are an adult who wants to talk to children who are not your own about sex in any way, shape or form, the answer is no. When did everyone start thinking this was okay? When did the books start coming out? When did schools start saying, oh, sex education, it's time, we taught your kids? Is it parents vacating the space because they're being irresponsible and they're not shouldering the responsibility that falls on every good parent to decide when it's time to have the birds and bees talk? Or are they simply progressively taking a back seat as they see, oh, well, this is being encroached on anyway, because this is happening in schools. There's worse books than this in school libraries across the nation. People need to get far more vocal about this. You're quite right. When did Big W decide, oh, this is appropriate for us to stock in our family-friendly store? Oh, so now you're involved, Big W, with teaching kids about sex. And lastly, let's be very clear. this isn't about sex. This isn't about how to make a baby. That's what my parents sat me down and talked about. This is about sex acts, and you're telling it to curious little minds who have never heard anything of the sort. And what do you think that is going to result in? I wasn't aware of half of this stuff till today. No, not quite. But seriously, why? Why? And especially when it's targeted at kids who are at an age where if you want to do any of that with someone under 16, it's a crime. So why are you even making them familiar with these particular acts? It begs the question, and good grief, it just makes me see red.
Well, I think Big W in this case should probably change its name to Big L for losers, because that's exactly what they've turned out to be in this. Why would you want to publicise a book with that kind of content? Obviously, they think they can sell it, but you would think at some point you'd go, hang on a minute, maybe that's not the book we want to have. I mean, I remember the book my parents gave to me when I was sort of, a young teenager, and it was something along the lines of, the boy's guide to puberty or something. Now, it didn't tell me in their particular sex acts, or it didn't go into gender fluidity. There's stuff in this book about pansexuality, aromantics, all sorts of stuff like this that Yumi Steins thinks an 8-year-old should be learning about. It's totally legitimate to tell a child about the realities of life and what's happening to their body and what they should expect about that. And any good parent should have an understanding with their child that if they've got a question, they can come and ask it. If something happens you don't feel is right or is odd or you want to know, come and ask me. That's what parents are there for. To abrogate that responsibility to a book like this that describes and shows things in such a graphic nature is just a total abrogation of parental responsibility.
And the last thing that should be on an 8-year-old's mind, for crying out loud.
I had a look at this book today. There's stuff in this book that a bunch of blokes sitting around at the pub would blush if someone brought up some of the things that are in this book for children. It's just outrageous.
It's quite incredible.